Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Crime Wire, an elite team of veteran investigation experts along with noted crime consultants and attorneys, often featured on the popular news programs for families of violent crime, to find answers and seek justice. The Crime Wire team, Vito Colucci Jr., private investigator and author, Denny Griffin, retired investigator and author, Susan Murphy Milano, violence expert and author, are there, on top of the crime, at the top of their game. Crime Wire is the place for information, news, safety, and most importantly, justice.
Hey, yes, tonight we're going to update the case of Daniel Underwood. On September 4th, 2008, 33-year-old Daniel Ray Underwood, his girlfriend Rebecca Nelson, and a friend, Maria Harvick, were at a bar in East Fork, Texas. The three then went back to the home Daniel and Rebecca shared in Sulphur Springs, Texas. According to Maria, once there, Daniel and Rebecca got into an argument and Maria left the room. A short time later, she went back into the room and saw Daniel holding a shotgun in his right hand and accusing Rebecca of taking all his money and burying him in debt. Rebecca grabbed the gun and a struggle ensued. Maria again left the room, and seconds later she heard the gun go off. When she stepped back into the hallway, she saw Daniel fall to the floor, mortally wounded. His death was ruled a suicide. However, Donna Underwood, Daniel's mother, doesn't believe her son took his own life. She'll join us tonight to discuss the latest developments along with Crime Wire consultant and statement analyst Peter Hyatt. Peter recently analyzed transcripts of statements made to police by Rebecca Nelson, Daniel's live-in girlfriend, after the shooting. Welcome to both of you, Donna and Peter.
Thank you, Danny. Glad to be here.
And
thank you for having me.
Peter, greetings. Listen, Donna, the case now, is it accurate as far as I described it to so far?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And you didn't believe that this was a case of suicide almost from the get-go. And you've obtained the tapes of the statements that Rebecca Nelson gave to police over several interviews within a few days of the shooting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Peter, you got involved here and actually analyzed, as you do as a statement analyst, the transcripts of those interviews with Rebecca. Is that correct?
Yes. And Denny, I'd like to say that it is an honor to be on the program with someone of Donna's courage. I think that her loss is just an unbearable difficulty to bear, and for her to have gone and taken the steps that we needed to take to get the interviews, and then to get them transcribed, it's a lot of work to be done, and I can only imagine what it must have been like to go through those and listen to them and to hear those things and know that a mother's instinct is saying one thing and a police conclusion is saying another. And then when I was asked to analyze the interviews, I knew the allegation was that he had shot himself, and that's basically all I knew about the case. And for statement analysis, we don't want to know anything more than just the allegation so that the language can speak for itself. And what I did was I began to slowly, so it's a lot of work, but slowly to analyze the interviews that were conducted, and a picture began to emerge for me, and I made some suggestions regarding what I believe that the interviews were showing, and it was difficult. I found that he was with me when I went to sleep at night. I thought about it when I took the interviews to my son's hockey games, and in between periods I would work on them, and I began to enter into emotionally what I think that his mother went through and reliving all these things over and over. And so I offer to CrimeWire and to Don and the family not simply my condolences, but perhaps some indicators of where this could go and maybe what really did happen that day.
Okay, Peter, before we get into your actual analysis, let me bring Donna back in for a minute. Donna, since we've talked the last time we were on the air profiling the case, in addition to the transcripts and Peter's analysis, has there been any other movement on the case? Has anything else happened of interest?
Well, right now, I want to say that I really appreciate Amanda St. Clair. She transcribed the police interviews so that Peter would have them in writing, and they have both put in so many hours. I want to thank both of them. And Gene with Citizens Against Homicide, I want to thank him, too, for agreeing to come in and help me, lead me through a lot of the criminal justice system that, I need help with. They'll be profiling Daniel in the coming months on their monthly newsletter. And we hope we can, see something come about by that. But I haven't done a whole lot. My husband has passed away after an auto accident. So really the transcripts of the police interviews that Peter has done has been the biggest thing right now.
Okay. Peter, I think without further ado, could you take us through what you found when you analyzed these transcripts, when you did your analysis?
Sure. I found an interviewer that seemed to scratch the surface in the interview at times. He did pick up on one deceptive area in her answers, but there came a period of time where he seemed to gloss over so many things, and at least in the beginning there were some indicators that were ignored, but towards the end it became to the point where I was able to conclude, Denny, that had Rebecca been given a polygraph, she wouldn't have passed. With statement analysis, we can tell if someone is being deceptive. If there's enough indicators of high sensitivity, we can conclude that they're being deceptive. We can't always say why they're being deceptive, what their motive is. Sometimes it's clear, but most times we can just say this person is being deceptive. For instance, if I talked with you about drug abuse, your answers would not show much sensitivity. If I talked to you about your involvement, commitment to families that have lost loved ones, we would see an increase in sensitivity, but not to the point where it would then suggest deception. She reached the point, Rebecca did, that she literally almost says to him, I'm withholding information from you and you're not going to get it from me, and he let it go, and it was very surprising. So I think the first thing that comes off is that Rebecca is a violent person. And
can I ask you, Peter, though, can you just talk to, because I don't know the answer to this, is this different in doing these intimate partners cases? Is it different than, say, a stranger or a father in the cases that you analyze? Is this any different? Is there a certain pattern that someone who's in a relationship with someone that possibly had something to do with the crime is different in their wording, or is different in their association of how they tell the facts or don't tell them?
It really is. There's a certain element of shame that goes on that we sometimes expect to see, and in domestic violence cases. But here, she herself was a violent person. She talked about getting into a bar fight as if it was nothing. And again, for a woman, this is quite unusual. But in the beginning, it starts off with she describes him and her as being this wonderful relationship, that they never argue or they never have any trouble. And that simply doesn't exist on the earth. It's just impossible to grasp. So the first thing he should say to himself as he's interviewing her is, why does she need to present herself as someone of perfection, of a relationship that's perfect? Now he did, and it's difficult to criticize other people's analysis and other people's interviewing skills, but there were some 101 things, we call them, in interviewing that he violated. Compound questions, introducing language, in an attempt to be sympathetic and gain a bond, he was really giving away different ideas for himself. But there were some major blunders there. But let's start with the first thing, is that she describes their relationship as being basically perfect, and then she goes into money, and she's very repetitive about money, and she wants to portray that there is no money issues. Now, if you know a couple that never argues, that's a wonderful couple, but if you know a couple that never argues and has no money problems, I'd like to meet them. It's just too extreme.
So she's trying to tell you that her world, just in her words, is hunky-dory.
Right, and she had a need to present her world as hunky-dory, and that is what is concerning. Why does she have a need to present this so well? If this is a suicide, there's no reason for deception. And she has the, for instance, if the conversation goes back to money repeatedly, and he questioned her. He said, come on, everyone has problems like that. Everyone has trouble getting along. Everyone has trouble paying the bills. No, not her, not her. Another thing is we look at the pronoun usage. Whose money? It's estimated that probably 90% of all murders take place under the word my or mine. And there were some indicators that this relationship was extremely tense, that there was some depressive issues that were going on. Then, as we progressed along, I felt in her language, and Donna, I'm so sorry to repeat some of these sensitive things that have to do with your son. I think that she was unfaithful to him. I'm sorry?
I said, that's fine. You couldn't say anything that would surprise me or hurt me or anything.
It's hurtful to know, but I think that she was cheating on him. Mm-hmm. I think there was another love interest there. And we have a deceased human being, we have a weapon that's been fired, and we have a male and female in a relationship. And the interviewer is not following up about money and about their relationship. We don't see that very often, that type of ignoring of these blaring symbols here.
Peter, can I ask you, you mentioned that the interviewers didn't conduct the best interview in the world. I don't imagine there's any way to tell without seeing other examples of his interviewing skills, whether this was just a sloppy job or whether maybe he requires more training. Or I'm just trying to think. You said there were some glaring things, 101 type things, and I'm just trying to get my head around that and wondering, what would cause that. If there's probably no way to tell without comparing these interviews with others he's done to see if it's the same.
Well, in general, in training, oftentimes in law enforcement, there'll be 200 hours training on firearms, 200 hours of training on how to operate a motor vehicle in every condition, under every possible trying circumstance, but very little training on interviewing. And interviewing basically is that if I am interviewing Donna has the information, I don't. And so there's certain rules that I follow. Of course, I ask Donna what happened and what happened next. So those are magical questions. But then I won't ask her, for instance, compound questions. I won't ask her questions that contain the answer. And this is another thing that he did was a 101 violation, is he sometimes worded questions in such a way as like, well, this is what you were thinking.
Well, that's because he was a woman, I think. I mean, it goes to what we have been seeing is that women who are before an investigator or before a circumstance where they might be involved are immediately, I think, dismissed by what they do and don't ask. Could that have been the case in this one?
Oh, I could not agree more. As a matter of fact, if you look deeply into his words, the interviewer's words, he probably is a gentleman and probably a decent guy. He was so concerned about not offending her and being apologetic. And this was not someone, and this is on the video, and I don't go into this too much in terms of body language, but it's there. This is not someone that was grieving. This is someone that in my estimation, had well moved on, and I think, frankly, that she seized a real tense moment between them. She seized it as an opportunity.
Again, it goes to the fact that we are not looking at these cases. It wasn't Landon Hopper in the case that we profiled here on CrimeWire as well. No one is going to the girl. No one is asking the questions of the only person that was in the room when he died. It goes to that same thing. And that's what's happening. There's a pattern here on these cases, Vito, that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, Peter's brought up some great things. I'd like to touch on a couple. He mentioned at the beginning when Peter started talking about polygraph, okay? Not only on the girlfriend Rebecca Nelson, but I would want to polygraph Maria Harvick, because all we got on Maria Harvick is she's saying, you know, she's in the room and everything is saying according to Maria, according to Maria. Oh, they're in an argument, Maria leaves the room. She comes back in, oh, he's got a gun supposedly in his hand, Rebecca grabs a gun, Maria leaves the room. We don't have any idea if any of that stuff is even true. So now if like Peter said, if it's a suicide, there's no reason for deception, okay? So, Maria, help us out here a little bit. Take the polygraph. We need to see, maybe we could refresh your recollection through the polygraph to get some other points, you know? So that's an important thing to do. You don't handle somebody like this Rebecca Nelson with kid gloves, okay, that is streetwise. You never handle a person streetwise by a compassion type of approach to them. You don't get nasty with them, but you do what you have to do as a lead investigator to get to the point. And another saying that most top cops know, and you'll learn this in the police academy, I know I've said this on many shows, the old saying that people that show improper emotions for the circumstance, okay? And you're always looking for that, for people that are showing improper emotions for the circumstance. What I would probably have done if I'm the investigator working this case, shortly thereafter, if I'm suspecting Rebecca Nelson at all, I want to have one of my rookie cops or somebody follow her. I want to see how soon after Daniel's death does she hook up with another guy, okay? If she's hooked up within a week, 2 weeks with somebody else, that's improper stuff for the circumstance, okay? So there's a whole bunch of things that are supposed to be done.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Underwood,
go ahead.
Pardon me?
I said, yes, try the next day.
The next day?
The next day she was with another guy?
According to Maria, it was the next night.
Okay, well then, you know, I'm not talking to her nice when I'm interviewing her. I'm going, you know, I'm saying, help me out here. Help me out. How can you be with somebody? He just died a couple of days ago, and you need this guy to console you? What's going on here? You wanted him dead, right? So, you know, the polygraphs are important. If you have nothing to hide, come on, come forward with this stuff. Like Peter said, suicide, no reason for deception. Follow her, see who she's hooked up with, and watch the emotions. Even on Maria Harvick, the friend that was there, you know, we don't know if any involvement or just maybe something she's scared about or hiding at all. So there's a whole bunch of things that should have been done on this, Peter, but excellent points, Peter.
There's an element there that Peter's describing, which is this type of demurring attitude that was towards Rebecca that comes right across in the video, and he's apologizing for asking any questions at all. She used certain indications, certain indicators of deception that were clear and should have caught his attention. For instance, at times she would, when we got to the part about the death and where he was dying, she slipped into present tense language, which is an indication that she may be fabricating at that point, because the past tense language is with us from a time where we're about 3 or 4. Even the latest 5 years old, we understand what past tense was. She slipped into that, but one of the parts that really grabbed me, that was actually upsetting, was she skips over a period of time by saying, the next thing I know, a gun is pointed at me. That expression is called a temporal lacunae. It means that there's jumping over time, and at the critical point, and this is where what Vito said about emotions, she is able to put down into emotions what she was thinking and what she was feeling at the time. That is deceptive. When you are going through, or when I am going through any type of trauma, we're on fight or flight hormonal overdrive. When someone puts the emotions in the quote-unquote perfect location, it is a sign that they are constructing a story. When she bent down, when he was down on the ground, when she skips that period of time, this is where I would like to get her in the polygraph with certain questions on what she did when she reached to his neck. And I am very concerned that she precipitated that death, or she expedited that death. So I looked for a pulse in his neck. I couldn't find one. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a gun pointed at me. okay, and then she changes it back to herself. In that period of time, in that temporal lacunae, in that jump right there, I think something nefarious took place. I think something nefarious took place before that, but at this particular time, this is highly sensitive. This is a bad place to be. She said, I had a gun pulled on me by a cop, which I understand why. Let me tell you, an innocent person never understands why. Whatever a person can understand why a cop pulled a gun or why they're being blamed or why someone may think that I'm guilty is an indication of guilt, and it needs to be explored. She understands why a gun was pulled on her. Now think of that. If you had just witnessed a suicide and you were heartbroken, about the last thing that an innocent person will ever accept is any form of responsibility. So when she says, I reached for his pulse on his neck, and the next thing I know, something happened there, sensitive, a gun is pulled on me, and I can understand why he did that. Okay, what she's saying is, I'm trying to be your friend, interviewer. I'm trying to agree with you, and I'm trying to look innocent. It is a heavy portrayal of guilt.
Donna, can I ask you a quick question? Peter indicated earlier that he is under the impression that Rebecca may have been unfaithful to Daniel. Now, you mentioned that she apparently was with another guy the very next night after the death. But do you have you heard anything, or do you have reason to also think that she had another love interest while she was with Daniel?
Yes, I can back up a little bit further than that. Maria said that they let them leave from the crime scene, and they were supposed to come back up to the police station. And Maria said when she looked up and Rebecca pulled back up to the police station for the interview, she had another man in there, Daniel Matheny, I believe was his name, that was supposed to have been her ex-boyfriend that she was wanting to get back with. And this was pulling up to the police station a few hours after Daniel had been shot. So I was even going further into the future, which was the next night, that she actually went off with the guy that night. So, I don't even know what happened that night. I just know that Maria said she come to the police station with this man.
Hey, Donna, how soon did they close the case, Donna?
I'm not really sure. I know he told us that morning that as soon as they got the autopsy, they were pretty sure what it was going to be then. And I would say probably 2 or 3 weeks. They were telling us there wasn't much more they could do. Then he turned around and said that he did set up a polygraph with her, and that was supposed to happen, and she didn't show up for it. So it was probably a couple of months then.
Do you have any contact with the detectives? Do you have any continual contact with them at all right now?
No. They didn't want to answer any questions when I called up there after I got the tapes, and I had several questions to ask, and they didn't want to hear me.
Okay.
There is an indication within the language. At one point she says, now, baby, don't do that. Baby, don't do that. Baby, we'll talk about it. Doesn't promise resolution, but it is this simple, the language of infidelity. I woke up this morning, I said good morning to my wife, and I got dressed and went to work. That relationship's a bad relationship. And the reason I say it is because we all say good morning to our spouses. The fact that someone needs to portray that in an official statement means it's very important to them to be portrayed that way. It's an indication that and then there's the mention of another man that is completely glossed over by the interviewer. So as she uses these type of phrases, it's almost a typical domestic homicide situation. She didn't show up for the polygraph because she has a reason not to show up in the polygraph.
And they closed it without going and doing anything further? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, it seems as though somebody should have just pursued a little bit more, and they didn't.
No, they didn't. I asked them after I had talked to Maria, I asked the investigator how they come to the determination of how Daniel ended up on his back and laying on top of the gun, because Maria told me different. And he just got real upset with me, and he said, what are you trying to say, that we didn't properly investigate the case? And,
there you go.
He just didn't want to help at all. So I just quit talking to him.
So the death certificate
I asked how
says
they made their determinations, on that her stories were consistent, and they just said there was no major differences in her stories. And
as the interviewer was really speaking so gently with her, she was using indications. Even when she described their argument, she would say it wasn't an argument, and obviously it wasn't. She used strong language, and then she said, "I just want to get home and take a shower." How many people would feel comfortable enough telling a policeman that she needs to take a shower? It entered into her language because it's significant. And I would explore, at this point, I'm thinking to myself, this is the symbolic washing of guilt. She is involved in a sexual relationship with someone else. She has been unfaithful to him. She has bled him, from what I could tell, on the money. She forged his account, and that wasn't something that was pressed forward. She just simply said, he gave me the okay to forge his account, and she was involved with someone else. And I think that she had him in a terribly vulnerable position, and in that struggle with the gun, while he was down on the ground, he may have still been able to survive, and I think she sought to expedite it, and that's why she needed to jump off in time, and I think that's why she wanted to skip the polygraph.
Peter, we're running out of time real quick. If you could do a quick summation for us, what after your analysis and what you found, what do you think happened that night? Then you think that she was complicit in Daniel's death?
Yeah, I think that he was depressed, and I think that he may have felt that his last bit of masculinity had been taken from her, and the infidelity was probably killing him. And so even if he had toyed with suicide, and this is Underwood, I'm so sorry to say this, I think that she pushed him over and either pulled the trigger or precipitated that it would take place this way. I think she's complicit in his death.
Okay. Donna, the question, I don't want you to divulge anything you shouldn't here, but I'm assuming this isn't the end of this, that you're going to pursue this further. Am I correct?
Yes, I am, and I'd like to get it reopened with some outside people coming in to investigate it. That's my goal right there.
Well, God, first of all, I know you've been through an awful lot here with several things, and I admire you for sticking to this, and I wish you every bit of success, and I hope you'll keep us in the loop or keep us informed as you move forward.
Oh, yes, I will, and I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you,
Donna. Thanks a million, Peter.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Take care.
Thanks.
Oh, okay, we move on to our second case tonight. We're going to be talking with Heather Steele,